So our objectives are to improve the environmental health of the Burren landscape, the biodiversity, the water quality and the cultural heritage. In order to do this, we reward farmers for the quality of their management on a yearly basis, which is captured through the field scoring system. But we also co-fund a range of supporting conservation actions. The purpose of these is to enable the farmer to manage the land more efficiently, but more importantly to improve the environmental health and drive up the scores of the fields and thus the area-based payments that the farmer receives. Simple things like repairing walls, installing gates and water troughs, controlling scrub and weeds are all co-funded through the project. The farmer, along with their farm advisor, will draw up a plan with the work that they want to do. The plan is then verified by the Burren Programme staff, who then obtain the necessary permissions for the works by liaising with the relevant state bodies. We try and take a lot of the administrative burden away from the farmer, and it ensures a very efficient workflow. The farmer then receives an authorised works plan with full costings and details and guidelines for each task. There's a lot of flexibility for the farmer too, as upon completion they can decide which tasks they want to get paid for, as they'll only get paid for what's completed to a very high standard. Stone walls have been a part of the Burren landscape for thousands of years. They're an important part of the culture here, and they really help with the proper grazing out of winterages. So it's really important to have stock-proof units within a farm. So it's one of the main tasks that's funded through the Burren Programme. With a well-maintained network of walls, allows the farmer to graze out the fields really well individually. So around this time last year, this whole area was one stock management unit. There was an old wall here, but it was maybe 2 or 3 feet high, lots of gaps everywhere. The cattle could cross at numerous points. So what the farmer and the contractor have done over the last year is rebuilt this wall all the way along and installed a concrete water trough, so that now the cattle can be confined to that side of the wall to ensure that that part of the winterage is fully grazed out. And now that this part of the winterage is fully grazed out.
I think it was around 2013, Dr. Dunford came over and he said, would I design a gate for the Burren in the old style?
Okay.
You know, and he said, but it has to be affordable. So I came up with this kind of a design here.
Yeah.
And I rang Brendan and said, yes, we'll go for something like that.
Cool, yeah.
You know, and it happened from there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I made 2 10-foot gates, and then it was 4, and then it got better and better and better, like you mean, and it has been a huge business, like you mean, since 2013.
Yes, you have a few hundred gone over.
I have hundreds and hundreds of gates made.
Yeah.
And not alone that now is, like you mean, there are at least, I know 3 more guys in the area that's making these type of gates. They might have a slightly bit of a variation, but basically the same thing. If I started, say, a 12-foot gate this morning, we'd say at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'd have 1.5 gates made by 5 o'clock this evening. Yeah, we make the square one, like you mean, because it's mostly single stone walls. Now, some of the gates aren't as high as this either, because a lot of the stone walls in the Burren, they're lower.
Yeah.
So we'll make a gate lower as well, like you mean, just to suit the area left. When you're looking in at a gate, like you
not to have part of the one line.
Yes, not just this thing sticking up in the air.
Yeah.
But we
so
would make the gate
wall,
like,
nice gate then at the same level.
We'll make the gate like me to suit.
Yeah.
We'll make the gate to suit, like you mean. But that's what it all came from, like you know, and it's a great business and it's a great success for everybody. The Burren is the Burren.
Yeah.
There's only one Burren in the world.
Exactly.
And it's nice to have it, like you mean, and have all this thing in it, like you mean, for the next generation and the generation after that, like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know, that's the way I see these, is like, you know.
Even though there's such high rainfall here in the Burren, because it's a limestone landscape, it can be very hard to find clean water sources for the cattle. So oftentimes cattle has to be moved between fields to reach springs and things, and oftentimes if there are a lot of stock using these springs, they can become quite mucky. So these natural springs are a natural water source for the cattle in the winterages in the Burren. So often they're just coming out in different spots, but and the flow to these springs can be quite low, and they're not really fast flowing like a river. So what can happen is the cattle will be drinking out of them. And especially when it's quite dry, there can be a lot of traffic in these areas, and there can be a lot of poaching around, and there can be a lot of dunging in the water, and the habitat around here gets churned up, the grassland gets churned up, and it turns into a quite mucky area. So we'll be kind of looking at ways to avoid this kind of damage to the water, and just to make sure that the water flow from here is much cleaner. the spring here would have looked like the one we just looked at. It would have been quite mucky there a few years ago. But what the farmer's done is protected the spring by building a stone wall around it. And then in order to retain the water for the cattle, what the farmer's done is installed a solar panel and pumped to a water tank just up the hill. So what you get here now is the water that's coming out is coming out clean because the cattle don't have access to it, but they still have access to water in another part of the field. And the water that's flowing out of here now and off into the ground is crystal clear, as the cattle are now focused on the water trough rather than the natural spring. So cattle pens are vital pieces of farm infrastructure. Many winterages are located quite a distance from the main farm, so the cattle need to be brought here oftentimes in trailers. So having these on the winterage means that the loading and unloading of cattle is much easier. There are a lot of requirements nowadays for ongoing disease testing, and having testing facilities like this crush here make that task much easier. It means that cattle can be tested on the winterage. They don't need to be taken away to the main farmyard, and because they can be tested on the winterage, it means that once testing is done, the cattle can go back out at the winterage and make sure that the grass is fully grazed down rather than being taken away to the farm prematurely to be tested there. If that happens, the grass isn't fully grazed out, there's lower biodiversity. So there is quite a good indirect biodiversity benefit from having a crush here on the winterage. So from the Burren Programme point of view, we'll look at suitable locations for these crushes. We'll liaise with the National Parks and Wildlife Service to make sure that there's no damage to Annex 1 habitats. We'll also liaise with the National Monument Service to make sure that there's no archaeology being damaged when the pens are being installed. We also liaise with the County Council to make sure that all planning regulations are conformed to.
Another of the things we're involved in the programme is helping to provide and improve vehicle access into winterages for the farmers. And you might say, well, why do they need access? Well, this particular track, from where you come onto the winterage at the road to the first gate, i.e. from the first field to the second field, is 1 kilometre. Think, the cattle are here in the winter. It's wet, it's cold, it goes dark early. If you've got to walk in across what was very, very rough ground in poor conditions, aren't you going to decide that I'm going to put my cattle into a slatted shed for the winter, feed them there, go out, turn the lights on, feed them, go back in, sit in the comfort? Why would you put them on a winterage to the hardship of actually managing them? So vehicle access is really important because winter grazing is crucial to maintaining these species-rich grassland habitats. So what we've looked at is ways of helping to improve access to the farmers by helping to find routes for tracks that will be acceptable, both in terms of the designations of SAC, the nature designations, which will comply with planning requirements, and also take into consideration the archaeology, so we're not damaging the archaeology, and try and fit them into the landscape. By providing access like this, you allow farmers to herd the livestock easy, so they're going to keep them out on the winterages longer. You also allows them to bring in concentrate feed and feed them at different points away from the road, far over, which helps to encourage the cattle to graze out those pastures better. So when it comes to the track, as I said, we try and use limestone. So this one track in particular, had already been bulldozed historically. Now, if we're putting a new track in, we wouldn't be looking at bulldozing, we're looking at infilling. We don't disturb rock that's there, so we'd be looking at ramping up over rock benches and infilling rock. So this one, we were able to use some of the historically bulldozed stone to ramp up this slope here. And the advantage of using limestone chip is that very, very rapidly it will revegetate, and you can make that even quicker by concentrating your limestone fill on the wheelings, where the wheels of the vehicles are going to travel. You don't really need to put much in the middle. So here there would have been a bigger cobble of limestone, then a smaller, finer limestone put off to finish it, because that's better for the cattle's feet, and less limestone actually went into the centre of the track. So that's revegetated with a typical Burren flora. So we've got lady's bed straw, we've got kidney vetch, we've got bird's foot trefoil, wood sage and knapweed. Things like that, they come back. I've seen tracks which have only been in 3 months with orchids coming up through the middle of them. So if you can do them in the right way, blend them into the landscape, they will fit back in.
My name is Aoife Ford. I'm farming here in the heart of the Burren in Carron in County Clare. I farm alongside my father PJ and my mother Fiona, where we run a 45 cow suckler herd. So I suppose we got involved in the programme back in 2015, and it's been fantastic for our farm because we've been able to carry out loads of different work on the farm that we probably wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. Through the programme we have put in a rainwater harvester that we were able to get access to water in the winterage that we normally couldn't have access to before. So that's given us a great relief because there's water up there all year round. In the height of winter there's plenty of water for the cattle to drink, and that was funded under the programme, which was fantastic. Also down we've cleared some scrub areas of the burn that have been re-exposed again because of the clearance of scrub, and it's land that's been reclaimed for cattle to graze and for the burn itself, and that again was done under the programme, and it was fantastic to do that. We've hung loads of different gates, the burn gates throughout the burn, and they're absolutely fabulous. They're such integral to the landscape. Just creating access tracks makes life so much more easier to access your land, and it's such a benefit to the farm and to the farmer itself.